Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores. I'm sorry I've been busy. I've been finding ways to create content around the chaos, but now I'm officially back full time. Y'all are about to get 1 to 2 videos at least a day. I'm about to start working on the film sessions for the entire rookie class, all of that. But today, I want to talk about how the Ravens and Cowboys reportedly wanted cornerback Emmanuel Forbes, our first round pick cornerback out of Mississippi State, and the fact that they would have taken him if he was available at their picks in the first round. So hopefully that makes some people feel better. I know a lot of Commanders fans aren't very happy about the pick, and maybe hearing that the Ravens and the Cowboys really wanted him and how high they are on him will probably make you feel a little bit better about the pick if you already don't. I love the pick. I'm very excited. So we're going to dive into all of that. Also, a Washington coach has come out and said that Forbes is really effing good. So we got to talk about that report as well. That came from Albert Breer. We're going to talk about everything we've seen from Emmanuel Forbes so far. Is he going to be an outside corner? Is he going to be a slot corner? Is he trying both so far? We've only had rookie mini camps. We haven't had a lot to go off of. We got OTAs and mandatory mini camps coming up after that. But that's when we're getting later into June and things like that. We'll see. But we got to talk about all of that and more. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get a notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up this upcoming Sunday, as in tomorrow, for the Commanders Call In live show, where y'all call in, you voice your opinions on everything going on. This Emmanuel Forbes news, anything ownership, the draft, schedule, anything you want to call in and talk about. You will have 3 minutes to do so tomorrow, as in Sunday. So make sure you call in for that. And also, man, make sure you stay tuned for all of these rookie film sessions. I'm doing field sessions for all of the rookies that the Commanders just brought in, and even some notable undrafted free agents like the returner from UCLA and the receiver from Stanford and guys like that. So make sure you stay tuned. Channel members will get the full 30 minute to an hour, maybe even more than that, raw, uncut, unedited film sessions, whereas the general public is going to get like the 5 to 8 minute one where I'm just trying to emphasize certain things and show you those certain things. Channel members will be ad free as well because you're paying to be a channel member. Why would I put ads in the video? So make sure you go become a channel member if you haven't already, because that's going to be really big. Have a lot of fun with that. Without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
Alright, so it's being reported that the Cowboys and the Ravens have both been revealed as teams that really liked Emmanuel Forbes and wanted to take him round 1 if he were available at their picks. And I was already high on Emmanuel Forbes, but again, like I said in the intro, maybe there are people out there that still aren't sold on him, and maybe some of those people, not all of them, but maybe some of those people, after hearing how much the Cowboys and Ravens wanted them, will be like, all right, man, maybe there's something to this that maybe I just don't see. The Commanders, apparently really high on them, taking them at 16th overall, and then the Cowboys and Ravens wanting to take them with their first round picks. That's pretty big. A lot of people, including me, I can admit, I was like, maybe we still could have gotten him if we traded back, and then he probably would have still been there. But then we got to talk about how far could we trade back. With the Ravens at pick 22, they ended up taking wide receiver Zay Flowers, and I'm pretty sure they're happy with that pick. But it's reported that they preferred Emmanuel Forbes over even taking Zay Flowers. They would have just taken receiver later. So that's how high they were in Emmanuel Forbes. So if you trade back, the furthest you can trade back is to 21 to take him, with the Ravens there at 22, and maybe even that not that far back, because what if we trade back to 21 and then the Ravens say, hey, we know the Commanders need a corner, so let's go ahead and do what we got to do to trade up to that 20th overall pick that the Seattle Seahawks have and go ahead and take Emmanuel Forbes there. Now, even though I'm not sure if the Seahawks would have done that pick, but they probably would have, because they got Jackson Smith and Jigba, and they clearly really like him. But if the Ravens trade up to 20 and they already talk with the Seahawks like, yeah, we're taking Emmanuel Forbes if we trade up there, we see the Commanders there at 21, so we got to trade up ahead of them to get him. And receiver is like the one position they don't need, so you don't have to worry about them taking them at 21. So you can sit there at 22, Seahawks, us as the Ravens talking to them, and you can be sure that your guy is still going to be there. So, I mean, how far, just any scenario that you're looking at, how far could we trade back and still possibly get them? Again, the Ravens pick at 22, and then the Cowboys pick 26, and they ended up reaching for Mozzie Smith, the interior defensive lineman from Michigan. And it's just apparent through reports that they wanted Emmanuel Forbes, and Emmanuel Forbes was probably the highest player on their board available after we got past a certain amount of picks. I wouldn't say he was the highest player on their board entering the draft, but maybe after we got into the teens, maybe the early 20s, Emmanuel Forbes was their favorite guy available. And after he was gone, and maybe some other guys that went that they probably wanted, Mozzie Smith was probably the highest guy left on the board. And even though I feel like a reach, the Cowboys loved that pick. But again, it's reported that the Cowboys and Ravens both really wanted Emmanuel Forbes as the first round picks. And if he were there for either of those picks that those guys had, 22nd and 25th, he would have been taken off the board. We would have had no chance of getting this man if we would have traded back too far into the first round. Oh, 26th, my fault for the Cowboys, not 25th. 22nd and 26th. That is crazy, man. I told you, I was saying, he's the Bryce Young of corners. He has everything you need: tape, ball skills, elite recovery speed, acceleration, change of direction, long arms, everything, literally elite at everything except for the fact that he's underweight. Even though he's probably going to add on some pounds before we get to the season, at the end of the day, it doesn't really worry me that much because he did it at the SEC level. And, if you could do it in the SEC, the NFL is basically just the next step above that. It's the SEC, then the NFL, nobody else in between. But at the end of the day, I call him the Bryce Young of corners because he's elite at everything. It's just that weight. And that's just the same thing with Bryce Young. Bryce Young is elite at a lot of things, but he's short and underweight. Whereas Emmanuel Forbes isn't even short. He's underweight, but he's 6'1" with really long arms, and he can make some plays with those. So I'm really excited. And so for my main point is that we were technically kind of lucky for him to even be there at 16, because if this guy weighed 190, he's not making it out of the top 10. You can argue just off of pure tape and skill sets that him and Devon Witherspoon were the best corners in this class, period. It would have been between Devon Witherspoon and Emmanuel Forbes, neck and neck. Who's the best corner in this draft class? Christian Gonzalez has all of the tools in the world, all of the potential in the world, and I'm not one of those Commanders fans that's just suddenly hating on Christian Gonzalez now that we just don't have him. I still think Christian Gonzalez is going to end up being a really good player. But if we're ignoring weight, Emmanuel Forbes and Devon Witherspoon, if we're just talking pure tape, what they did in 2022 on the field is between Emmanuel Forbes and Devon Witherspoon. And again, we're lucky for him to even make it to 16. The fact that he's underweight is the only reason that we were even able to get him right there. And I'm one of those people that was like, man, maybe we could have traded back and still got him. But now that I'm hearing these reports about the Ravens and Cowboys, maybe we couldn't. And it sounds like the Commanders made the right decision there. If cornerback was that high on your list, I'm pretty sure if Darnell Wright or Broderick Jones were there at 16, we would have taken them over Emmanuel Forbes. But since they weren't, since none of the real top tackles that the Commanders really wanted were there, Emmanuel Forbes makes the most sense. We did need corner. I feel like it was tackle or corner, and Broderick Jones, Darnell Wright wasn't there. Paris Johnson Jr. wasn't there either. So you had to go ahead and get the guy that was highest on your board. That's the guy highest on your board. Now, I don't regret it at all. I'm really excited about him. We're going to talk about what he's done so far in rookie mini camps and practices that we've seen. It's not much, but he's been making plays, and he's been playing around the secondary, not just in one position. We'll get there. But again, just to go ahead and do this breakdown real quick, the respected insider stated that the Dallas Cowboys were keeping a close eye on Emmanuel Forbes before the Commanders swooped him away before they went on the clock at number 16 overall. With Dalton Kincaid also off the board, Jerry Jones and his staff selected on defensive tackle Mozzie Smith, which was seen by reach by many. Quote, the Cowboys were closely watching Mississippi State corner Emmanuel Forbes, who went number 16 overall to Washington. At 26, with tight end Dalton Cade off the board, Dallas was deciding between Mozzie Smith and Syracuse offensive tackle Matt Bergeron. And then Eric DeCosta said Emmanuel Forbes was one of my favorite guys in the draft and visited Baltimore. EDC said he would have considered taking Forbes in the first round. Ball hawk, skinny dude, but just a straight out baller, just a good player, unquote. DeCosta also said, quote, that was an aggressive pick, but I think that's going to be a pick that you look back at the first round, you'll say, you know what, that was an awesome draft pick, unquote. And again, this is not even coming from the Commanders fan base or Commanders reporter. This is coming from Eric DeCosta himself, who is the executive vice president and general manager for the Baltimore Ravens. So big compliments and real good news to hear from opposing teams. It's going to be really interesting to see us versus the Ravens in those joint training camp practices, which will lead to a preseason game, because they're going to get a first look at Emmanuel Forbes while he's still learning to acclimate himself to the NFL level. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the Ravens still view him as highly as they thought in the draft. That's going to be really cool to see, especially with them having to cover Rashad Bateman when healthy, Odell Beckham Jr., if he's back healthy, Zay Flowers, who they ended up taking in the first round. This is going to be really interesting. They're going to see, like, hey, man, did we really miss out on a great player, or are we just finding up with Zay Flowers in the first round later after the Commanders took Emmanuel Forbes from us? And then, of course, it's always good to take a player that the Cowboys want. The Cowboys were clearly higher on Emmanuel Forbes than even the guy that ended up taking Mozzie Smith, and so they basically kind of settled on Mozzie Smith. But, I mean, you ask any Cowboys analyst or fan, they'll probably say that Mozzie Smith is a very underrated player and not a reach at that pick. But again, if Emmanuel Forbes were there at that pick that the Cowboys had at 26, they would have taken him. Just like the report said, it was Emmanuel Forbes and Dalton Kincaid, and then after that, they had Mozzie Smith and Matt Bergeron. Now, before we dive into everything Emmanuel Forbes has been doing so far in rookie mini camps, just to let you know, the Commanders listed him at 173 pounds in that mini camp. So that's a little bit heavier than the draft measurements we got from the combine at 166. But I'm hoping maybe it doesn't matter that much, but it would be nice if he could at least get the 180. We'll see. I mean, he has an entire summer to do so if he wants to. We'll see, though. But it's reported that during rookie minicamp, the Commanders experimented with putting first-round Emmanuel Forbes in at nickel corner. Now, with you spending a 16th overall pick on him in the first round, he's going to play outside corner, plain and simple. Now, a lot of people are saying that because he's smaller, he doesn't have a lot of weight to him, slot corner maybe makes the most sense, but I don't think that makes too much sense. Even just, again, draft wise, you're playing him at outside corner, but I also think he's great enough, has enough instincts, high IQ, awareness, speed, length to handle outside corner very well. I'm not really worried about that too much. And then either way, Benjamin St-Juste, we can make sure he covers the A.J. Browns, which he did a great job against every time we played them. And then you can have Emmanuel Forbes to cover the Devonta Smiths, who killed us. And I know Emmanuel Forbes, we've already seen the back and forth between him and Devonta Smith. Respectful competition there, you know, respectful trash talk, but they're both ready to see each other. I already posted the video about how Emmanuel Forbes wants to see Devonta Smith the most out of any receiver in the NFL because Devonta Smith torched them when Emmanuel Forbes was still a freshman at Mississippi State. And Devonta Smith, I believe, was a junior at the time, headed into the draft, one of the best receivers in that draft. So Emmanuel Forbes can't wait to see him. Devonta Smith heard about it and said that, hey man, I'm ready. You know, I'm not backing down. I'm not going to talk crazy just yet, but I'm ready. I want to see you type of thing. And they're going to see each other twice a year. I'm really excited about that. But either way, Emmanuel Forbes will be the outside corner. But continuing with the report, it says, however, given Forbes' slender build, it seems they prefer to put someone else in that role, and veteran cornerback Kendall Fuller has played slot in the past. Now, I don't want Kendall Fuller in the slot, so I don't know where Kendall Fuller is exactly going to fit, because I feel like if anything, Quan Martin could be your starting slot corner. Benjamin St-Juste, you're starting outside. Emmanuel Forbes, the other starting outside. Kendall Fuller's going to find a way to play because he's so smart, but we brought in two corners, first and second round, back to back, our top two picks in the draft. Somebody is taking a back seat, and I highly doubt it's Benjamin St-Juste, especially if he can stay healthy. But that's another thing too. The fact that we can't trust Benjamin St-Juste to stay healthy for an entire NFL season means that Kendall Fuller is still valuable to this team, because if Benjamin St-Juste gets hurt, now you're starting outside corners of Kendall Fuller and Emmanuel Forbes. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to take corner in the first round, at the very latest second or third round in this NFL draft that just happened, because I just don't trust Benjamin St-Juste to stay healthy an entire season. But when healthy, Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste are your outside corners, period. And then after that, we got to figure things out. I'm assuming Quan Martin is your slot, but we'll see. I don't like Kendall Fuller in the slot. Ever since he left to go to Kansas City and then he came back to the Commanders, he was not good in the slot. He was elite in the slot before going to Kansas City, and then he went and won a ring and came back to the Commanders and just suddenly forgot how to play slot. I don't know what happened, but either way, perhaps things have changed. But when asked about Fuller at the NFL owners meeting, head coach Ron Rivera seemed to indicate a preference to keep Fuller in one spot, which is really interesting because one thing about him, it's pretty versatile. You can even ask him to play a little bit of safety if possible, but it sounds like Rivera is like, Kendall Fuller is going to play on the outside and he's not going to play at all. And that makes a lot of sense because, again, Kendall Fuller is not good in the slot anymore, man. Ever since he's played in the slot from returning from the Kansas City Chiefs, I know I just said this, but I want to emphasize it, man. He was not good in the slot at all. So Ron Rivera has a point, man. He's going to play outside or he's not going to play at all. Now, I prefer to see him play a little bit of safety over playing in the slot again. Anything over the slot, I'm not going to lie. The quote goes, for what Kendall has done for us the last couple of seasons, been our most consistent guy, been the guy that's there. You got to look at the situation and say, let's leave them in one spot, let's work around him, unquote. So Rivera sounds like he's going to work around Kendall Fuller. He's going to play somewhere. I'm not exactly sure if he'll start. I'm not exactly sure how much he'll play, but Ron Rivera still likes him enough to get him onto the field at least somewhat. He also said, quote, he is a veteran guy. He's very crafty. That's going to impact the way we approach everything as far as that's concerned, unquote. So again, my main point is probably we're really just looking at Quan Martin and it's like, how far have you developed? Are you going to be able to push Kendall Fuller off of playing time? It just depends on how fast Quan Martin is able to adjust to Jack Terrill's defense and to adjust to NFL level competition. I mean, Illinois plays some pretty good teams, but he wasn't in the SEC. He wasn't out here playing against the great of the greats every week in college, and now he's had to go against Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel every day in practice. That's a learning curve for you. But if he can learn quickly, he's going to push Kendall Fuller for playing time. And again, Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste outside corner, so I don't know what we're going to do with Kendall Fuller. We'll see. But most importantly, as far as Emmanuel Forbes goes, in an Albert Breer article that came out on Tuesday, he noted how Forbes immediately turned heads at Washington's minicamp over the weekend, even drawing comparisons to Dallas's Pro Bowl cornerback Trevon Diggs. The quote goes from Albert Breer's article, the 16th pick in April's draft came flying in rookie minicamp, with a pick on the first day that reminded one Washington coach of Trevon Diggs and how instinctively and aggressively Forbes went after the ball. And I sussed that comparison out after the coach's initial reaction to the rookie's weekend was simply, quote, Forbes is really effing good, unquote. Of course, the tape on the former Mississippi State star was spectacular. No one debates his reel was one of the best in the draft. His frame is the problem. And to be fair, in a non-contact minicamp setting, the sturdiness of a 6 foot, 166 pound body, 173 pounds officially, wasn't going to be tested. So we'll see come summer and fall how he answers those questions. But so far, so good, unquote, after the Albert Breer article. And hey, man, shouts out to him for making the first impression that he's made. Again, like Albert Breer stated, you know, we're not having much contact. The only worries about him coming out of the college level is his lack of weight. That's it. If we're talking about anything else, again, I call him the Bryce Young of corners. Anything else you can argue great to elite. At the very least, really good. At any way, shape, or form that you can play the cornerback position. Even as far as stepping up in the run game and making tackles, which is usually a thing that people with low weight aren't able to do. Emmanuel Forbes can do that as well. He does that better than Christian Gonzalez at the very least. So it's just like, I want to be hype about these interceptions already in rookie mini camps. But first of all, who's throwing the ball? Who is he covering? And then also the weight thing. Once we get to some contact, we got to really see how good Emmanuel Forbes is. I'm expecting him to step up and be big time, and the weight's not going to matter. But it's still one of those things we got to see. And for him to be compared to Trevon Diggs, which I don't really agree with, especially comp-wise, Trevon Diggs is such a gambler. He's either getting an interception or he's getting cooked for a touchdown. There's really no middle for him. I prefer more maybe like a D'Angelo Hall. I could see like a Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie or something like that. I would love an Antonio Cromartie, something like that as well. D'Angelo Hall in his prime is something that I would love Emmanuel Forbes to be as well. I'm more of those guys where they are playmakers, they're risk takers, and they're guys that get interceptions, they cause turnovers and things like that, but they're not getting cooked on the plays that they don't. Trevon Diggs, I don't like that comp. I don't even want him to be Trevon Diggs. I know he's made a Pro Bowl, but that's scary, man. I mean, maybe with our defensive line, and Trevon Diggs could work, but I don't want him to be the guy that it's either an interception or he's getting cooked for a touchdown. And for some reason, people just ignore the other stuff just because by the end of the season, they look at the stats and he has so many interceptions. But I prefer Emmanuel Forbes to be a great cover corner and a guy that forces turnovers and takes risk when he's supposed to, not just take risk every play. I love Marcus Peters, one of my favorite personalities in football ever, one of my favorite players. But hey, man, you got to chill out a little bit too on those risks. And so I'm hoping Emmanuel Forbes is more of a D'Angelo Hall and Antonio Cromartie than a Trevon Diggs or Marcus Peters. But time will tell. We got to see what that weight's looking like. But again, for a coach to basically come out and say Forbes is really effing good, like that's the exact quote, that type of hype already is really interesting. Again, we got to see him prove it against the starters, against the receivers that this team has, which is arguably the most underrated in the entire NFL, the most underrated receiver group. So I'm really excited. I think he's going to step up big time. Iron sharpens iron. He's going to make them better, and they're for sure going to make him better. So I can't wait to see how him and Quan Martin develop over this summer before we even get to the fall. Can't wait to see what they look like in the preseason. I'm so excited, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. As always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. How do you feel about all of this Emmanuel Forbes news? The fact that the Ravens and Cowboys would have taken them with their picks. Also, how do you feel about the comp to Trevon Diggs? How do you feel about the coaches already raving about them and it's only rookie mini camps? All of that type of stuff. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video in the comment section. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Again, I'm back. So we're about to be doing a video or two a day. I was kind of improvising, putting out like random videos with clips and stuff where I don't necessarily have to record and talk to y'all and edit. But now it's full-blown edit, record everything. Rico, y'all are about to be getting like 2 videos at least a day. I'm back on it. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.